Tetraplegia is a form of paralysis. This can be caused by strokes, injuries, tumors, or something else that may cause neuron death. This can happen either in the brain or in the spinal cord. If it happens in the brain, then the ability to think or imagine is being depraved. But if it happens to be the spinal cord, then the pathway of electrical impulses from the brain to the body parts are disconnected or damaged. And if that happens to be the case, then the muscles of the body parts can't receive electrical impulses or signals from the brain, which they need to start movements. And if that isn't the case, then some body parts can't be moved. That is paralysis. And most of the time, minor ways of paralysis with spinal cord injuries heal from themselves, but there are also cases where the injury is just too big to heal from itself. And one big form of paralysis, or the biggest form, is tetraplegia, because it goes from the feet to the head, and you really can't move anything. But there are at least modern ways of treating tetraplegia, from which basically all in pretty early stages, because back in the day, like 20 or 10 years ago, people really didn't consider that tetraplegic people could be helped. Well, modern healing methods consist of stem cell therapy, nerve bypass surgery, BCIs or brain-computer interfaces, exoskeletons, AI epidural stimulation, and gene therapy. What these are all individually I will go on about later. And the sources will also be added onto the end. Let's begin with stem cell therapy. So, spinal cord injuries cannot heal naturally. Well, they can for a bit, but if they are severe, they can't really. But stem cells can help regenerate damaged tissue or damaged uh, spinal cord neurons. And that is a pretty promising therapy because studies have shown that such treatments can improve movement and help the people walk again, for example. But this research is like basically all of us in pretty early stages and hasn't been tested on really a whole lot of persons. Also, stem cell DNA must match the patient's DNA, which is also not always there. And we can see it in the image here. For example, the traumatic spinal cord injury can happen around a very big position. When we can get maybe stem cells from a place and then use it for repairing the tissue. As I am not a very good expert in this case, I am not quite sure how this works, but basically you get tissue and isolate the stem cells and let them expand to generate new tissue, and then under an administration you make the tissue get back to the spinal cord from where it can function again. Now we talked about fixing the problems by repairing or making new neurons. But then we also have the new nerve bypass surgery. One should imagine the nerves or the neurons as paths for the electrical impulses of the brain if they are in the spinal cord. But if they are damaged, then this means the path is broken. But a path can also be altered, and that is a surgery that can be done here. Electrical impulse pathways can be altered with special surgeries. And this is also relatively new, but something that has been tested successfully with people. But such surgeries also carry a lot of risk, and I think in this case there was a 75% chance that it worked correctly or in a way that is successful. But 75% isn't a whole lot, and the study didn't show what happened with the people that didn't get success with this. But all in all, this could be a very valid potential treatment in the future. Now we go to the BCIs. BCIs intend to analyze brain activity using wireless computers or analyzers. They can be pretty much anything. They have to decode electrical impulses to control movements and make commands. Basically, if some electrical impulses happen in the brain, those are read and then interpreted in a way that can be used. For example, a cursor can be directed, or movements can be interpreted with this. It allows a lot of stuff, uh, especially with technology. People can pretty much participate with it, although it is a bit harder for them. And studies show a lot of success here, but on-screen operators are often needed, and that really isn't an independent way of doing operations or doing stuff in general, which is what most people actually want to reach. And if all doesn't work accurately, like problems could occur if electrical impulses aren't read correctly. I mean, a lot of the brain is studied appropriately, such that things can be read accurately, but the brain is very complex, and if you have an exoskeleton like here that works with the brain, then things may get problematic because then false movements could be done, which could break bones, and that should be prevented. But the design of the exoskeleton and etc. can help there. Now let's get to exoskeletons and assistive robotics. I made a small error there. Now, wearable robotic suits can help people move, but most rely on slight movements in the upper body, which for tetraplegic people really isn't there, so that really is only valid for this method is only really valid for people that don't have full paralysis, or only with models of exoskeletons that work with BCIs, and not really other cases. Now let's get to epidural stimulation. AI in its current form has emerged only in recent years, but it has the ability to map one thing to another. For example, a curve could be approximated, uh, like a number x can be sent to a number y or mapped to a number y. That in itself isn't really useful here, but the brain has electrical impulses that are somewhere, and these need to be mapped to correct movements. And that's the thing where modern AI is really innovative, because it does things like that pretty good. And interpreting neurons from the brain with the electrical impulses is getting better every day. And there are also cases where people could move more complex, make more complex movements. And the way in which this epidural stimulation works, these are actually two things. Epidural stimulation is in itself just electricity sent to a specific part to the spinal cord. But they are often just used together. And appropriate electric signals inside of the spinal cord, or at the region of the spinal cord with specific devices, can help make the electrical signals to the spinal cord that go to the body parts and make it move. How the spinal cord is completely connected to the body is studied pretty well, but it is, yes, it is actually studied pretty well. But also here, if it isn't all done correctly, it makes problems, and yes. Now, the last sort of therapy that can be used for helping people is gene therapy. Complete spinal injuries prevent natural motor function recovery. Like I said, if the spinal cord is damaged partially, then it can heal off naturally, but if it's fully damaged, then doing anything from doing health healing naturally is pretty much impossible. But gene therapy aims to regenerate or repair nerve fibers because it is something that is genetically determined that fibers or nerves, roots, or neurons in the spinal cord aren't fixed from itself. So genetic therapy can make the genes restart the repairing process. Up until now, trials with this have only been made with mice and they could walk again. But the last study for this was maybe 3 years ago in 2022. And in research time, that really isn't a lot, and human trials are basically maybe 5 to 10 years. So expecting there something soon enough is pretty much impossible. And the thing with this is, a lot of the research here with stem cell therapy, nerve bypass surgery, and BCIs isn't really old to say. They are actually pretty new. For example, nerve bypass surgery and stem cell therapy are actually pretty young. They have really begun in the 2000s, and they need a lot of research to be really assistive. But they sure are promising, and expecting such technologies 30 or 40 years ago would have been pretty much impossible. And stuff like BCIs and exoskeletons can help most people, especially exoskeletons. For the people that aren't fully deceased with full tetraplegia, they can be helped if it's just a mild case of paralysis. And nerve bypass surgery also isn't that much used for tetraplegic people because actually the injury in the spinal cord injury is far nearer to the head region, and that is something that is quite risky to be meddled with if something is being tried to fix there, because if it breaks, the person could much easier die if the spinal cord injury was much lower in the body. So this is a lot of stuff that needs to be checked, and the sources are here. I accidentally got too far right here now, but yes. At the end of the day, these are the links I used, and yeah.